I've spent years diving deep into the great minds of history, 100,000 pages of economic and political thought. Murray Rothbard, Will Durant, Hayek von Mises. I studied the Austrian school, absorbed the wisdom of Voltaire, and read the relentless critiques of broken systems weighed down by flawed money-government overreach and cycles of control. These thinkers are my mentors, giants, brilliant in diagnosing the disease, but none had the cure. They all saw it. The problem: broken money, failed interventions. A world where power flows not to individuals, but to the institutions that control currency, land, and law. And then January 3rd, 2009. That date matters. That was the singularity, the birth of perfect money. Satoshi Nakamoto didn't just invent a new currency. He solved the ancient riddle that none of these economists or historians could crack. He created a system where economic energy value can be placed directly into the hands of the individual. Immutable, portable, censorship-resistant.
Lots of people will come up with lots of things to do with digital capital over time. What we're doing with it is we're using it as collateral. It's the base layer that we use to issue billions of dollars of bonds. We've issued about $10 billion of bonds that were backed by the Bitcoin. And now we've just issued two preferred stocks, one called Strike, and there's about $1 billion of it floating in the market now. That is backed by the Bitcoin. And another thing we issued called Strife, that provides a 10% dividend at par value. That's the sort of the highest yielding instrument of its kind in the market. That is backed by Bitcoin. So when people are buying this preferred stock called Strife, we're agreeing to give them 10% yield forever, for 100 years, for 1,000 years. And so how are we doing that? We're investing our own Bitcoin. And then their question is, well, how will you pay us? Well, we're invested in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's appreciating. I think it'll appreciate 30% a year for the next 20 years, and then 20% or more. So the Bitcoin is the engine that is generating the dividends, that is generating the collateral and the security for those fixed income investors.
For the first time in human history, we can pull power out of land, out of gold, out of corporations, out of fiat, and bind it to the person, not their nation, not their bank, not their government, them. That's the breakthrough. That's what changes everything. Because once you bind energy, money to the individual, you create a foundation for economic freedom, political dignity, and sovereignty. Real sovereignty, not on paper, but in protocol. If I had to name one mentor in the modern era, it wouldn't be a politician, it wouldn't be an economist, it would be Satoshi. Because Satoshi didn't just explain the problem. He did what none of the others could do. He built the solution.
The Bitcoin is generating yield for our equity shareholders because every time we sell any of those fixed income instruments, that generates BTC yield. And then, of course, the fixed income instruments generate a more secure, higher yield for the conventional investors. And that's a business that can grow scalably for a long, long time. What would you rather have, 50% return and 50 vol, or 20% return and 20 vol? The majority of them would want 20% return and 20 vol. The actual market for that is 100x bigger. And that's because they just don't want to get on the roller coaster. And Bitcoin is a roller coaster for many. But having said all that, the capital markets are structured. So there are some people that have billions of dollars to invest in venture capital.
Let's talk about the future of capital markets, built on Bitcoin. A lot of people dream up wild things to do with digital capital. Here's what we're doing with it. We're using Bitcoin as collateral, as a base layer, to issue billions in financial instruments. We've already issued $10 billion in Bitcoin-backed bonds. Real-world credit instruments, not theoretical experiments. And now we've taken it a step further. We've launched two Bitcoin-backed preferred stocks, Strike. There's about $1 billion of it floating in the market today. Strife, and this one's groundbreaking. It pays a 10% dividend, not for 1 year, not for 10, but forever. 100 years, 1,000 years. That's the structure. How? What backs it? The engine is our own Bitcoin treasury. We've invested in Bitcoin, and we believe it'll appreciate 30% annually for the next 20 years, and then 20% or more long term. That capital appreciation fuels the dividends. That's how we pay. That's how we grow.
We don't know exactly how fast we'll get through it, but we're confident that we will. And the goal is to simply strengthen the Bitcoin network by funneling all of that capital from the fiat currency markets and the equity capital markets and the traditional credit markets into the Bitcoin economy.
Now here's where it gets really powerful. We're not just holding Bitcoin, we're monetizing it. Our vision is to become the global leader in Bitcoin-backed credit. We're offering something radically new to European investors. We're giving them higher yield than corporate bonds. To Japanese investors, their corporate bonds pay 0.5%. We offer 10 times that. In return, we earn the Bitcoin yield, so we give the world fiat yield and take back Bitcoin upside. Here's what most people miss. The global fixed income market is over 300 trillion, and it's desperate for yield. Bitcoin is the perfect foundation to offer high-yield, low-trust, collateral-backed instruments to that entire market. So when someone asks, what are you actually doing with your Bitcoin? This is the answer. We're turning it into yield, into products, into opportunity for both fixed income investors and Bitcoin equity holders. This is Bitcoin's moment to go mainstream in global finance, not just as an asset, but as the engine of modern capital markets.
Bitcoin is the most cooperative, most ethical, most inspirational network in the world. Every time someone joins the network and contributes their capital to the network, all the rest of us become more powerful, more secure, and more successful. But one day, every public company will flip to the Bitcoin standard from the local fiat standard. And they'll do it because 25 years out, fiat sovereign debt will yield 3% and have a 3 vol, and Bitcoin will be 20% with a 20 vol, and it will still be 7, 8, 10 times better to be on the Bitcoin standard, even after 20 years of all of us doing what we're doing.
We're building a bridge between Bitcoin and the legacy world, and we're doing it with structure, with discipline, and with conviction. Let's make Bitcoin the foundation of the next financial century. If you found this valuable, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. Do you think Bitcoin will reshape the $300 trillion credit market? This is just the beginning. Stay tuned as we continue exploring how Bitcoin is transforming global finance.